Welcome to Between Two Chairs, Demystifying Commercial Real Estate, the podcast that brings you the latest insights and trends on the South Florida commercial real estate market, with your hosts, Fernando Arencibia Jr. and Jennifer Wollmann. In each episode, we dive into the world of commercial real estate and break down complex concepts to make them accessible for everyone. Whether you're a real estate professional, a curious investor, or just interested in the South Florida market in general, Between Two Chairs is the podcast for you. So pull up a chair and join us.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Between Two Chairs. My name is Fernando Arencibia, and with me is the very creative, and I'm going to tell you, really, she is the producer of Between Two Chairs podcast, because she's always coming up with very creative ideas on what we are going to talk about. So today we have really a very special episode, and I will not do it any justice by introducing it. So I'm going to let Jennifer explain to both the people that are listening and the co-host, myself, what in the world are we talking about today?
So I try to mix things up and keep it not too dry.
In the most wonderful way.
The Miami Film Festival starts today and it runs through April 13th. So I thought it would be appropriate and a little out of our regular, commercial real estate topics and themes to have some fun with movies. So, of course, it has to have something to do with real estate. So I decided on real estate movies, and not just any real estate movie, but one that I had never seen but hear about all the time, which is Glengarry Glen Ross.
A blast from the past.
Yes, a blast from the past. All-star cast. I mean, oh my gosh, I was so excited when I saw the cast. It's Al Pacino, Jack Lemmon, Alec Baldwin, Ed Harris, Alan Arkin, Kevin Spacey. I'm sure I'm missing a few others, but very, very young, so it definitely dates us. So I was super excited when I saw it, and then I'm like, I know why I never saw this movie. So it was one of those movies that wasn't a fan of, but I had so many aha moments because I had never seen it before. And for those of you young people, there are going to be things in there that you're not going to recognize. Payphones. There were payphones. Yeah. Everybody was running around with a beeper and a payphone. Right. What is that? And only the cool, high-producing had like a cell phone that looked like the size of a shoe or a waffle iron next to his head. But so that I could relate with, because when I started real estate, we would get beeper calls, and then it was running around trying to find a payphone. But anyway, so going back to some things that, that I've heard but had no idea where it came from, was coffee is for closers only. I'm like, I didn't know Alec Baldwin is the one who is, famous for that.
Oh, that's funny.
And that and A.B.C. always be closing again, from this movie. So I thought it obviously had a big impact on the real estate world, because those quotes are still in effect today. Now you're welcome. You know where they came from. But
I think, it's going to be interesting, because some people are going to, there are a few scenes in the movie that are very, very memorable. It's based off of a play by David Mamet, or David Mamet, I'm sorry. So it is extremely well written. The dialogue is incredible. And I think that's where a lot of those, those memories come from. It definitely is an 80s film, right? With the bravado of sales. There is that, undercurrent of Wall Street and that entire ambiance that is applied to it, and definitely feels like you and I always speak about this boiler room mentality, right? Of dialing for dollars and
horrible. It was
right.
It made the whole movie made me so uncomfortable.
Right.
Also,
exactly.
No women. Not a single woman in the entire movie.
Yeah.
And it mostly takes place inside an office, with the exception of a couple scenes that are outside at the local bar. So it's
right.
I mean, super creative.
Think about it. It's an adapted play.
Of a play.
So
exactly.
they kind of, there were only 2 or 3 sceneries really where everything takes place.
Right.
I thought that, when you first told me about this, and of course I remember the movie. I remember the memorable scene at the start of the movie with Alec Baldwin, who's only in it for this one scene, but has became incredibly memorable. A, always B, B, C, closing, always be closing for sure. AIDA, attention, interest, decision, action.
Yeah.
So, it does have this thing. There's the whole brass balls
that one
component.
I don't even remember that one. I do have the attention.
How do you not remember that one? That's crazy.
Because the whole movie,
it made you uncomfortable.
It was ick.
Right.
It's ick. Ick.
Right. And I understand where you're coming from. So this is really, when I rewatched the movie in advance of this episode that we are recording, one of the things that I really found is that it is a glimpse as to what the portrayal or the portrait that has been made about what sales is like, what real estate sales is like, in a very charged environment. And so there's a lot of things to break down. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I found really interesting is there is a sign at the top in front of the manager's office that says salesmen are born, not made. And, when I'm watching this movie now, I'm seeing it from a very different perspective. Right. And I think that's a great place to start, because really what the movie really is sharing is these are some concepts or ideas of what sales is like. I think it's very caricaturish of what it really is like. Maybe that's the way it was always, back in the 80s, mm-hmm. but I don't see that. So one of them is that I think a lot of people refrain from being in a job that is a sales job because they feel like, well, I'm not a salesperson, mm-hmm. from that mentality. And I think that comes from that idea of, salesmen are born, not made, which I don't subscribe to at all.
Neither.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
And I think part of it is because of the perception that people have about sales. But I'm more of the mindset that in every position that you have, in every job that you have, there is a component of sales that is involved. If you are a research scientist, you have to convince a group of people to give you money to conduct your research. Right. That's sales. It doesn't matter in what capacity or what job you have. There is an element of every position that you have that is about sales. You sell yourself when you're going in front of a job interview, and there's a component here where I feel that, I don't think that this is a trait where that people are born with. I think that it is something that you develop.
Well, and I think it might have also, to your point that this film was in the 80s, I mean, maybe that's what, and this was more a development real estate office, right? They were selling land in new development, subdivisions, etc. Definitely not a relationship-based business. No. Very shystery, very much, I mean, you can see where, if that's how they conducted business, why some of the laws to protect the consumer came in. But there was one line at the very beginning that it's funny because now that, we have our own brokerage and we're the ones interviewing and hiring agents and discussing our value to them and what we offer. I thought this was so funny. It's like, they don't give you the leads. They don't give you the support. They don't give you blank. I can't say the word online, but I thought that was so funny because that is definitely the salesman's mentality, and I don't think that's where real estate brokerage is today. Everybody will tell you that it's a relationship-based business, that even if you get leads or you're doing your cold calling leads or however it is that you get leads, that you need to have your CRM, that your CRM is the basis of all of that, where most of your business is going to be generated from. So I thought that was interesting too, because to your point of both that quote and the salesmen are born, not made, most of the people and the ideas that we subscribe to in a lot of the new younger broker firms that are run by people who used to be at older, more established brokerage firms say, give me a hard-working, hungry person and I can teach them sales. I can teach them the process. I can teach them that, but I can't teach motivation, drive, hunger, those characteristics. So.
The first act of the movie is all about, it's really all focused on the leads. These leads are crap. They're terrible. They want us to close them, but I've seen these leads before. They're regurgitated leads, and there's an entire discussion about no, the leads are not bad. You're bad, and it's really interesting because I was watching a movie. My wife was sitting next to me doing something else, and she was like, "Oh my God, enough with the leads! Like, why do they keep bitching about the leads? Like, oh my God, they don't stop talking about the." And it is true, and it is very interesting because I do find there's a set of skills that you have to develop in order to grow and establish your own business that you will have a hard time developing if all you are looking for is to be fed leads and to follow a very structured way of following up on those leads. You're missing out on the conversion, and you're basically allowing someone else to have control over your business, right? Because they're feeding you, and now you succumb to that, right? So there's an element of cost. There's a cost to always following the lead instead of building a business through relationships that can outlast all other businesses, right? So yeah, I thought that there was a huge preoccupation with the leads instead of, really understanding what it is that they were selling, what it was trying to accomplish.
Or who their audience was.
Or who their audience
right?
was.
Like who,
correct.
Somebody just filled out a form online, they went after him and after him and after him and after him. And then the scene where the poor guy's the guy comes in and he'd already written a contract and paid a deposit, and he tells his wife, and his wife is like, go break that contract right now. And the behind the scenes dealing to try to keep the guy, just the whole
really,
great
to try to fool him
into staying in that contract.
Well, and basically trying to get him to a point where he was past his 3 days
where he went hard, so he couldn't refuse. Right.
Yeah,
a lot of unethical behavior.
I think that's where a lot of the ickiness, comes from when you see it. It's just a terrible portrayal of land sales,
Yeah. But there was my favorite line in the whole movie was delivered by Kevin Spacey.
Okay.
And it's, will you go to lunch?
Will you just go to lunch?
Will you just go to lunch? And it made me think, okay, now, I would have liked to have seen Act 2, which is when they start going to lunch and taking people to lunch and everything. And that made me think of the book Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi, which says that you should use those eating coffee happy hour moments to create relationships and dig deeper, not to be selling, but to create those relationships. Yeah.
So definitely a glimpse into past that, I think there are outfits, not so much in real estate, but I think in sales overall, there are outfits where that is the focus. You have a lot of other industries where that still is the approach, boiler room, dial for dollars. It doesn't matter what you say as long as you get the deal done and as long as you get the deal closed. There's definitely a lot of bravado, a lot of machismo, a lot of flaunting of money as an equation of success. I think Alec Baldwin in the beginning, you're a great father, who cares? You're like, you're a wonderful husband, it doesn't matter. Like the only thing that matters is closing the deals, how much money do I make, what kind of watch am I wearing, and what kind of car am I driving, So it was definitely, it's a glimpse to that life where, interestingly, a lot of the conversation that we've been having at our firm and our family of companies has been this holistic approach to tending to the agent and the wholeness of the agent, that one component is not enough to make you satisfied with life, right? That there has to be a balance, that there has to be engagement. And, so I just really, it was interesting because we just had that meeting, and then the juxtaposition of the conversations we were having to the conversations that are being had in this movie are so far apart. And I think that there's definitely been a great evolution. It made me think, and in this case, it's different because I was thinking about the source of these leads. So people responded to an ad in the paper, right? How did they respond to an ad in the paper? They probably called the number, or they maybe, you remember how in the newspaper sometimes you would be able to cut out a section, fill out your name, put it in an envelope, and send it in. And then that was your way of responding. So there was an action. It wasn't just like I'm online and I'm clicking through it, right? There was an action on behalf of the people that are expressing, and and now what it was gravitated to was this idea of when the do not call list comes out, and this idea of people were just getting annoyed of getting phone calls at night when everybody had a landline, and you would get these calls and you had no number, there was no number recognition, so you would answer, and then it would be a telemarketer trying to sell you something. And then these new do not call rules began to make themselves into effect. It limited that level of interaction, and people had to get creative. And we've seen people get creative, and now it's all over the internet. Anywhere you're going, there's always a pop-up, something that is trying to sell you. But what I find interesting is that when some of these rules come out, it is in those limitations where you get to be more creative, and things, you get to become better at making connections, right? Because you have to overcome the cocoon that everybody is living in, where, okay, I'm protected here, you can't come in here. And the only way you do that is you do that by building relationships.
Right.
Which is why that is such an important skill set, really, for if you have the mindset that I'm going to have a very long business, whether your business is real estate or anything that has to do with interaction with the public.
Right. Well, in closing, I wanted to bring up some other real estate movies, because even though, yes, this is fun and whatever, we have ethical issues that we deal with, such as in this movie, there's negotiation skills, there's brand awareness, there's everything. So I wanted to thank Bella Virtual, which is a virtual staging for real estate company that I found online, okay. Google, for this list of the top 10. So The Wolf of Wall Street, The Founder with Michael Keaton. I haven't seen that one. I have seen The Wolf of Wall Street. The Apartment, also with Jack Lemmon. That's an oldie. Real Estate 2008 is a movie. Beetlejuice. I've seen that. I'm not sure how that really is a real estate movie.
Well,
Yeah, I guess the house and...
They buy the house. Then when they find the goals, they want to develop it into a,
that's true.
They want to develop the neighborhood,
thinking
surrounding,
the box
right?
Real estate.
Exactly. So, yeah.
A Place in the Sun, another oldie, an actual one called The Realtor from 2021. You don't get to make 500 million friends without making a few enemies. The Social Network. The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Oh, I'm going to have to watch a lot of movies. Other People's Money, and that's it.
I've seen The Secret Life. So yeah, there's a few there that I'm scratching my head.
Yeah.
But there are a few that are not included there. The Big Short.
Right, The Big Short was on another
Wall
list.
Street,
yeah.
Wall Street 2 is very
right.
much about what the housing crisis.
Right.
There's a few there.
Yeah,
but
there's a lot that aren't
The
there.
Secret Life of Walter Mitty. I don't know how that relates to real estate. That's really interesting. It's a great movie. It's a great story, number one, but it's a great movie, and I forgot who's the lead actor there. Oh, Ben Stiller.
Right, it's Ben Stiller, and it says that this highlights the power of stepping outside of your comfort zone. So even though it's not strictly about real estate, it hints, this is a quote, hints at the significance of physical environments in fostering creative thinking and personal growth.
Absolutely.
So, that's it. That's all.
That's it.
This is a
very short episode. Like I thought we were gonna go. I thought you were gonna have a long list of questions. No, that's it.
That was it. That was it. Got to keep it short and sweet.
Keep it short and sweet.
This is an episode for traffic on the Palmetto.
Yeah, exactly. So let me ask you. No, let me ask you about one thing. So the film festival that is starting today. Do you attend? I used to be a huge fanatic of the Miami Film Festival back when it was in the theater in downtown Miami. I used to love that experience. Have you attended many of the?
I don't go to the whole festival, but my daughter and I usually pick out a movie here and there. I haven't been in the last 2 years, but I do pick out movies and go. Yeah.
Back in the day when the film festival started, there were movies that you would only be able to see
Right.
because of the film festival
Right.
that were being brought up. Movies from Latin America, from Europe, from Africa, from all over the world, Middle East. It was really quite the experience. And now it's in multiple venues, so
Right.
you have a little more accessibility. But very interesting and very interesting dynamic of having a city that really has and continues to grow the film business and their place within the film industry. I wanted to just mention that I thought it was really interesting. I just saw the last Captain America movie, and one of the characters went to UM, right, as a character, and the actor is actually from Miami. So it was really interesting. And there's a scene at the end where, and I forget the actual what he was trying to do, but I think one of the last lines of the movie is the guy's telling him about some idea that he has, some crazy idea. He goes, "That's the most Miami thing that you have ever said." So I thought it was, yeah. So I thought it was really cool. Well, anyway, thank you everybody for joining us on this shortened Drive on the Palmetto episode of Between Two Chairs. I love the Drive with the Palmetto series. Drive on the Palmetto series. I think we're going to have to start that. I love that. No. I love that idea. Anyhow, say bye, Jennifer.
Bye, Jennifer.
Bye, Jennifer.